At some point in our lives, we all stumble upon a couple of questions, all related to the same topic: death. Where do we come when we die? What happens to our memories? Is there another world in the afterlife? Is there such thing as reincarnation? Some people see it as the worst outcome possible, while others see it as their greatest relief. Some people are just ready for it whenever it happens, while others, not so much. But if one thing is for certain, is that you'll never know the answer until you're there. And that's just terrifying. If there's something you need to know about myself before watching this video, is that I love video games, especially RPGs. The whole concept of playing the role of the main character in a well-written story with a cast of entertaining characters fighting for a common goal in a journey where you must gain enough experience to go through all the obstacles in your way until you reach the biggest one of the whole story, which 9.9 times out of 10 is a final boss that you have to defeat, is easily one of, if not the absolute greatest experiences any video game fan could ask for. However, if I'm telling you this right now, it's because it wasn't always the case with me. About 7 years ago, while I was in my room in my PS3, I was searching on the web about the next games that I should try. And during my search, I found a certain game that by the time was considered by many one of, if not the best RPG game of all time. Of course, I'm talking about Akiva Strip, Undead, and not Persona 5. It was Persona 5. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Hey, don't sleep on this baby boy. I mean, it's not even an RPG game, but it's a 100% classified. When I did my research and found out about Persona 5, considering what I just mentioned about my passion for RPG games, you might be thinking it was a no-brainer to assume that I gave it a shot once I saw it, right? Well, no. You see, the reason why I said it wasn't always the case with me is not because I used to hate RPGs back then. No. Back then, it was more of a certain comeback system that I just couldn't tolerate. And if you've already played this game, you might have an idea what I'm talking about. Yep, you guessed it. Back then, I used to hate the turn-based combat system.
How dare you!
I mean, seriously, the fact that I'm in an actual fight where we're supposed to stand there and take all of the attacks we throw to each other with a slight possibility not only of dodging but of dying in the process was extremely frustrating and infuriating to me. Especially because I felt like the outcome of the fight did not depend on me, but on the game's mood at the moment. I mean, think about it. I could be in the middle of a dungeon, minding my own business, and after I played a long playthrough without saving my game because the last saving spot that I used was so far away, I suddenly faced a random enemy which has the same level of the 130 enemies that I faced before him, and in the middle of the fight he just suddenly hits like 5 critical hits and kills me. And because I did not save my game, I end up losing all the process and I have to do this all over again. And while I'm on my knees, with tears in my eyes, asking the game why, the game's response is basically, why? Because fuck you, that's why. So, I try to avoid them as much as possible. Unfortunately, most of the best RPG games of all time use this battle system. Final Fantasy, Pokemon, Dragon Quest, Fire Emblem, and of course, the Megami Tensei franchise, which led to the formation of the Persona games. Now, after enough recommendations and the fact that I wanted to try new genres on my PS3 for a while, I decided to give it a shot. And you might be thinking, so that's the moment where you fell in love with the game, so that you wanted to try out the other ones, and that's the moment you became a full Persona fanatic after playing all the Persona games ever could? Not exactly. You see, my PS3 had its issues. The games will run very slowly, the console would get pretty hot and sometimes it would suddenly go off and the data of my hard drive will become corrupted, so every once in a while I'll have to delete it for it to function again. And unfortunately for me, that will happen during my gameplay of Persona 5. 3 fucking times! Until my PS3 came to its inevitable end. With that being said, I will not be able to try the game until I bought my PS4. And at first I didn't have any desire to retry the game, I mean seriously. I could not go past Madarame's Palace, so I didn't think paying $60 to replay a game I already started 3 times was worth it. Seriously guys, I live in Latin America, $60 for a game is a lot of money no matter how you look at it. Fortunately, one day I found the game on PlayStation Network at just $15. And then I thought, well, this must be a signal from the PlayStation gods telling me to give it another shot. And well, that's what I did. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so that was really the time you fell in love with the franchise, which led you to wanting to start the other. Not exactly. And I'll explain why later. After successfully finishing the game on my PS4, I was curious enough to give the old entries of the game a shot to see how different they were from the rest. And the first one that came to mind was, of course, Persona 3. So I went out of my way to try the FPS version of the game, and even though I started with the expectation of being at least a decent game compared to the last entry of the franchise, I did not expect it to be the piece of art that would change my point of view of life and death forever. I know at this point the video might be too long to be considered an introduction, but here it goes anyway! Hello everyone, this is Todd Caroni telling you how Persona 3 changed my life forever. So, let's talk about Persona for those who have not played the game yet. In this game, you live the life of a high school student that, due to certain circumstances, is forced to move and start a new high school year in a new city. In the process, you discover the city has been affected by some monstrous creatures called shadows, which are a living, breathing representation of human emotions, basically the negative emotions. And your goal as a protagonist is to defeat those shadows using a certain special power called personas, which are powerful spirits that represent the strength of your rebel heart. Of course, you're not alone in this journey, as you'll be joined by a group of friends that you'll be meeting during your journey and will be also awakening this power eventually. Now, since the personas are the representation of the strength of the human heart, from a strong persona to be developed, you must develop a strong heart. And the only way to do that is by growing as a person and creating and strengthening your bonds with your friends, which in this game are known as social links, which means the closer you get to your friends, the stronger the personas you summon will become. Now, the reason why I said personas instead of persona is because unlike the rest of your crew, you as the protagonist have the unique power of having multiple personas instead of just one, which is the case for the rest of the persona users. Which makes sense considering that if you only have one heart, you must have one persona. So, in other words, you're basically Kakuzu from Naruto Shippuden. Okay, with that being said, going back to my experience with the game, the reason why I didn't become an immediate fan of the franchise after finishing Persona 5, which don't get me wrong, it's an excellent game, is because due to the fact that I had to start the game 4 times before finishing it, in my final gameplay I was so focused on finishing the game as quick as possible that in the process, I just couldn't enjoy it to its full potential. You see, when it comes to this game, you can do a lot more than just fighting shadows. Every month you're given a certain deadline to complete a mission related to the main objective, whether it's saving someone who's trapped in the world where the shadows run around, or fight a big boss, or awaken corrupt person from his distorted desires. And during that time, you're given the option to do so many different things that in a way will help you get a certain advantage in that certain mission. I'm talking about finding ways to make money so you can buy better weapons, better equipment, and useful medicine and items for battle, develop your attributes as a person like intelligence, charm, courage, proficiency, or etc., which will help you create and develop even more social links that will result in the creation of more powerful personas that you can use in the battlefield, and even completing some side missions that will award you with some valuable items that you cannot buy on any normal store. These are the things that make this game so unique and interesting compared to any other RPG in the world. However, in my case, with me being so focused on beating the game instead of enjoying it, I did not pay any attention to any of those extracurricular activities. My only focus was to level up, get good weapons, and beat my enemies, just like any other RPG fan out there. So, no social links were maxed out, no attributes were completely developed, I barely did any side quests, and I was only making money by beating the shadows and selling the stuff they were dropping, which is like the easiest way to make money when it comes to this game. In other words, instead of playing it like a true Persona fan, I ended up playing it like just any random RPG fan. Because of that, not only I struggled more than I should have to finish the game, I didn't even see anything special in the game at first. However, like I said before, I was curious enough to give the other games in the franchise a shot to see how different they were from their last entry. So I went out of my way to start my next journey with Persona 3, the FES version to be more specific, and boy oh boy, there was something about this game that I just could not ignore. You see, even though every Persona game is pretty much identical when it comes to gameplay, each entry has their own concept to be based around. For Persona 5 was fighting the unjust world created by a society full of corrupted adults in their high social statuses. For Persona 4, which I play after Persona 3, it was about the comparison of the real-life world and the idealistic world fabricated behind the screens of our television, and how that affects our society when it comes to showing our true selves to the world, or at least that's what I understood. And then we got Persona 3, which has one of the most simple but relatable concepts ever: the meaning of life and death. And that concept can be reflected not just by paying attention to the story, but also on the art style, the music, the atmosphere. I mean, everything about this game just screamed darkness and sinister and even depressive sometimes compared to the other more colorful entries. When it comes to the concept of life and death, you can tell just by playing this game and getting to know all the characters involved in it, including the side ones, how this concept affects them in one way, shape, or form. Whether it's the loss of a family member, their plans for the future, an existential crisis, the responsibility to protect those you hold dear to your heart, or even the struggles of just trying to live a decent life. This game takes the effort of sending you this message with every single content available, and I couldn't help finding this incredibly engaging. Now, you might be thinking that it's a little bit of an exaggeration to consider an interesting story something that will change my life forever, but there's something more. And for me to give you the details, I'm gonna have to tell you the whole story of the game. So basically, we're gonna enter the spoiler room from a couple minutes, maybe an hour. So if you want to feel the complete experience of the game, I suggest you skip to this part of the video so you don't miss it. Okay? We good here? We good? We good? Are we good? Are we good? No, okay. Here we go. Our story begins with you, a high school boy that just got transferred into a new school in a new city due to the loss of your parents. Once you arrive to the dorm, you meet a mysterious little boy called Ferris, who will ask you to sign a contract that, according to him, is only to make sure that you'll be responsible for all the decisions you make from now on. So, without having any idea what's going on, and honestly without giving a single shit, you proceed to sign it. After that, you start reading the residents of the dorm, with the very first one being Yukari Takeba, who sees you as an intruder at the moment, so she tries to go full America by taking out her gun in self-defense.
And so I pull out my gun!
Only to be stopped by Mitsuru Kirijo, who specifies Takaba that you're the new resident of the dorm, so they proceed to lead you to your assigned room. After a couple of days getting used to your new lifestyle, one night at the dorm, you and Yukari inevitably have your very first encounter with your very first shadow. A shadow that at first was fighting another resident of the dorm named Akihiko Sanada, who returned to the dorm after being greatly injured and in the process ends up getting followed by that same shadow. After having no place to run and no place to hide, the shadow finally finds you, and in the heat of battle, Yukari ends up getting knocked out by that shadow and in the process loses possession of her weapon. Now, after realizing the spicy situation you're in, you decided it's time to take action. So once you see the gun that Yukari dropped on the floor, you remember seeing Yukari pointing this same gun to her head and trying to shoot herself once she saw that shadow. So at the moment you thought, maybe that's how this weapon works. So you proceed to do the same thing. You take this gun, you point it to your head, and since you have bigger balls than Yukari, you pull the trigger. And as a result, you summon your very first
Persona.
Thou art I, and I am thou. From the sea of thy soul I come. I am Orpheus, master of strings.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
After beating that ass in shonen fashion, you end up passing out from exhaustion. You wake up in a hospital bed where Yukari, who has been waiting for you, thanks you for saving her life. And in the process, she tries to open up a little bit with you, since from now on, you'll be starting to work together. Once you come back from the hospital, Mitsuru and the chairman of the board of Gekkoukan High School, Shuji Ikutsuki, proceed to explain you everything. According to them, the shadow they encountered back then appeared because they were present during a time period called the Dark Hour, which is a dimension that only exists after midnight and is also the place where the shadows take physical form and run around the city attacking people and infecting them with a certain disease called the apathy syndrome, a disease that causes you to lose all will to live, basically turning you into a freaking zombie. So, Mr. Ikutsuki later reveals that you were brought into this dorm because he was well aware of the potential you had as a Persona user, which is the only power capable of defeating the shadows that are being brought into this world from a place called Tartarus, a gigantic clock tower that is located right where Gekkoukan High School is during the Dark Hour. The only ones that were already capable of summoning that power were the already mentioned Mitsuru Kirijo and Akihiko Sanada. All of you together are called the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad, better known as SEAS, an organization with the only goal of saving the world from the shadows. As you live your normal life as a high school student while trying to save the world doing your extracurricular activities, you start meeting the rest of the Persona users and future members of SEAS. First, we got Junpei Iori, a charismatic second year and a baseball fanatic looking to find purpose in his life while trying to bang as many chicks as possible. I officially declare you a true Chad. Secondly, we got Fuka Yamakichi, a quiet and timid second-year girl with the only desire to being helpful to those she finds dear to her heart. Next, we got Aegis, a combat android created by the Kirijo group with the only purpose of destroying shadows and an unhealthy desire to protect you and be by your side forever. I officially declare you waifu material. You can judge me, I don't care. Next, we got Ken Amara, a first-year kid trying to avenge his assassinated mother. Next, we got the absolute cutest dog in the world, 5 me, I don't care, Koromaru, a dog who lost his master, a monk from Naganaki Shrine, half a year ago and is still waiting for his return, so he keeps protecting that shrine. And last but not least, we got Shinjiro Aragaki, better known as Shinji, one of the founding members of SEES and Akihiko's closest friend, who he grew up with in an orphanage and decided to retire from SEES due to an incident that happened 2 years ago, where his persona went berserk after completing a mission and ended up killing an innocent bystander in the process. And unfortunately, that innocent bystander was none other than Ken Amada's mother. While you live your life beating the black piss out of all the shadows you can find on Tartarus, you find out during a summer vacation, which is where you meet Aigis for the first time, that on every full moon, a super heavyweight shadow will appear, with a total of 12 representing a third arcana. And if you defeat them all, both Tartarus and the Dark Hour will disappear. In the process of completing this mission, you encounter a group of 3 people with very opposite plans and ideologies. They named themselves Strega, a group made of Jin, the dude with the glasses who likes to play with grenades, Chidori, better known as Junpei's red-headed waifu, and Takaya, a skinny, tattooed, long-haired version of Monster's Johann Liebert, who sees his persona power as a blessing, so his goal is to keep Tartarus and the Dark Hour present so they can keep their powers for as long as they live, which unfortunately won't be for long. You see, before they became the first main antagonist of this story, they were 3 little rat labs for the creature group's investigations about the personas and the shadows. The creature group somehow found a way to make these 3 kids summon their personas, but it wasn't an unnatural way compared to our main characters, so they were not able to control it at the time. And when you don't have a strong enough heart to control your personas, your persona will most likely try to kill you. In response to that, the creature group created some sort of drugs to suppress that power temporarily. And just like any other drugs, constant consumption has its consequences. And the unfortunate consequence of this way of living is a shorter lifespan. As a result, it was easy for them to fall into nihilism and see the fall as a path of salvation. After you defeat the big shadows and stop both Takaya and Jin from interfering with your goal, you're suddenly met with the harsh reality about Mr. Ikutsuki's plans. You see, Ikutsuki's objective of destroying the 12 shadows was not to eliminate the Dark Hour and save the world, but quite the opposite. Shuji Ikutsuki's plan was to bring the fall upon the world as they know it by destroying these 12 shadows and in the process manifesting the living being with the power to do it, the Appriser. In other words, everything you've worked for, all the people that lost their lives in the process, it was all for nothing. The group went through all of these tragedies just to realize they were only working to devise humanity's own demise.
Well, that sucks.
After a couple of days of what's left of SEES, wondering what will be their next move, a new student called Ryoji Mochitsuki gets transferred into Gekkoukan High School, who for some reason I guess considered as dangerous, and later we will find out it's not because the guy is a bigger Chad than Junpei himself. I mean, seriously, the guy tried to bang Mitsuru on his first day, so he's a legend in my eyes. You see, without going into too many details, on the next full moon, Aigis went to the Moonlight Bridge on her own during the Dark Hour and found Ryuji standing there without feeling the effects of the Dark Hour, which led to Aigis and then Ryuji to remember everything. What is this everything, you ask? Well, it's just what it sounds like. Everything. As I already mentioned a moment ago, 10 years ago, the Creature Group worked on an elaborated research about the shadows, the personas, the Dark Hour, and how all that power can greatly affect space and time itself. Mitsuru's grandfather, Kotetsu Kirijo, wanted to control this power to create some sort of time manipulation device in order to control the world as he seemed fit. But unfortunately, just like Ikutsuki, and later just like Strega, he started to embrace nihilism and started working on bringing the fall upon the world, viewing death as the only way of salvation. In the process, Kotetsu and a lot of the people that worked for him during the investigation were caught in a devastating accident that caused the destruction of the lab, the death of most of them, including Yukari's father, Eiichiro Takeba, and of course, the inclusion of the Dark Hour and the Shadows to the world. Aegis was built and brought into this world by the remaining members of the Kirijo group, that being Mitsuru and her father Takeharu Kirijo, to destroy those shadows. However, she ended up facing a shadow that, after an intense exchange of blows, she knew she wasn't going to be able to defeat. That shadow was known as death. And unfortunately, during that same exchange of blows, a family was caught into the fire, causing the parents to die in the process and leave a little boy in the middle of the situation. Aegis, knowing very well she wasn't going to be able to defeat death, had no choice but to act at the moment and seal the shadow inside the little boy's body to prevent it from coming back. Now, as you may already know, a cruel twist of fate has led this boy to come back 10 years later to the town where it all started, to then meet another boy requesting to sign a contract for him to start his journey of destroying shadows and, in the process, bring the fall upon their world. Sound familiar? Of course, I'm talking about you and Pharaohs, who in actuality is Ryuji's child form, caused by the separation of his power into the 12 arcanas you were fighting on every full moon. And now that Ryuji is back to his real form as the Appriser, the fall is now unavoidable. After Ryuji got his memories back, he proceeded to explain to the rest of the group that his arrival is destined to bring a mother being called Nyx, which will cause all living beings to fall into the apathy syndrome, leading to the end of the world. In other words, you're all screwed. You're all getting cooked and served. You're gonna die. You're gonna die.
Destroy us all! Destroy us all! Destroy us all! Destroy us all! Destroy us all!
When the group asks if there's a way to prevent this from happening, Ryuji, with a painful look on his face, simply responds that Nyx cannot be defeated. It's not a matter of power or determination. Trying to stop Nyx is like trying to fight against time and death. It cannot be avoided, it cannot be manipulated, it cannot be changed. The only thing they can do is wait for their inevitable demise. However, since the human part of Ryoji grew so close to the squad, he actually gave them another option, and that option is to erase all their memories from the Dark Hour by taking his life. That way they can live a peaceful life without the constant fear of knowing when they're gonna die, which according to him will be before spring of next year, which will be in around 4 months, as all this happened on December. And Ryuji gave him until next year's Eve to make that decision. When that day arrives, no matter what they choose, the guy they knew as Ryoji Mochitsuki will disappear, and on the promised day, he will return as Nyx. As the leader of the group and the one who had to bear with the responsibility of having the Arcana of Death inside, you are given the responsibility of making this decision for the entire group. The group already decided that we're going to fight Nyx no matter the circumstances, and if you want to see the true ending of this story, you would choose to do the same. Otherwise, you're chicken shit. Hey, that's what the game says, not me. The promised day arrives, and after putting on your tight pants and your favorite undies, it's time for you to go face to face with the physical representation of the apocalypse, the mother being called Nyx. After a long and intense fight that seems to be useless, just as Nyx is about to fulfill her duty, you decide to confront her on your own. And just as Aegis did with you 10 years ago, you use all your power to seal Nyx away from this world, saving it in the process. So you did it. After all the struggles, after all the disappointments, after all the tragedies, and after so many people telling you that you can't do anything about it, you saved the world from its own destruction. Time goes by and the day of graduation arrives. Due to the sealing of Nyx, just as it would have happened if you would have decided to kill Ryuji, the group's memories from Tartarus and the Dark Hour do disappear. However, their bonds were strong enough for them to remember a promise they made a while ago, that when everything is over, they will all meet on the school rooftop the day of graduation to celebrate the last day together before going their separate ways and start their own journeys. So, as you say your goodbyes to all the people you forged strong bonds with during your journey, with most of them telling you that you look awful, that you need some rest, because you do, you really do, the game ends with you, waiting on the rooftop, resting on Aegis' legs, with the rest of the team running to that same rooftop so you can all fulfill your promise. And while Aegis expresses her devotion to protect you and be by your side for the rest of time, you're starting to feel really tired. So, after a long, hard, exhausting, stressful, but fulfilling journey, on a beautiful sunny day filled with cherry blossoms, you peacefully go to sleep. Forever. Now, before I continue with the story of the answer, there was a big question I asked myself once I finished the story of the journey. And that question is, who is the true villain of the story? At first, I thought it was the Dark Hour and the Shadows, until I realized the Kirijo group were the ones who caused all of it. Then I thought it was Strega, until I realized the Kirijo group were the ones that took their lives away by experimenting with them, which turned them into the nihilistic group we all know. Then I thought it was Nyx, until I realized Nyx didn't come to this world on her own free will, but it was pretty much summoned by our actions, mainly the actions of the Kirijo group. And finally, then I thought, okay, it has to be the Kirijo group, specifically the nihilistic members of the Kirijo group, those being Shuji, Kutsuki, and Kotetsu Kirijo. However, after finally finishing the story of the answer, I realized it was something so much bigger than that. So, I'm not gonna keep it waiting any longer. Let's continue. It is now April 31st. The dorm is getting close tomorrow, so Mitsuru plans to celebrate their farewell with a big sushi buffet. However, only Mitsuru, Fuka, Junpei, Ken, Koromaru, and Aegis made presents, while Yukari and Akihiko had other plans that could not make it. As you go along, you will soon realize this story is being told from Aegis' perspective. Aegis fell into a deep depression after losing her purpose to live. So, as much as she tried to go to sleep, she was never able to do so. That day, she tried to go to sleep earlier while the others waited until midnight. However, when the clock struck midnight, they realized something was wrong. The calendar was still showing April 31st, and time just stopped moving. Suddenly, a mysterious android with the same model as Aegis came from out of nowhere and started to attack the group with the intention of eliminating them. Aegis showed up just in time, and when she saw Ken being in great danger, her persona Athena suddenly appeared. And not only that, Athena metamorphosed into Orpheus, the very first persona you, awaken, later revealing after waking up in the Velvet Room and meeting up with Igor for the first time that just like you, Aegis has somehow awakened the power of summoning multiple personas. After waking up from passing out in the process of events, she proceeds to interrogate the mysterious android that was tied up in a chair by the chat of the group, my man himself, Mr. Junpei, while Akihiko and a moody Yukari also arrive to the scene. The android will reveal herself to be Aegis' sister called Metis, who came from a dimension called the Abyss of Time only to protect her, and for some reason, according to her, the only way to do that is by eliminating the rest of the group. As you can tell by how it's called, the Abyss of Time is an unknown place where time stays still, and somehow it caused the whole squad to be trapped in the dorm until they find a way to destroy it, just like they did with Tartarus. And how are they gonna do that? Well, this is a Persona game, so of course, you gotta beat the black piss out of more shadows. What else could you do? As the group enter every dungeon behind every door present in the Abyss of Time like a floor in Tartarus, they are chasing a mysterious silhouette that keeps running away from them until they face the big shadow that's watching each dungeon. After beating them, they will see a door at the end of each dungeon, and once they open it, it will show a certain moment of the past of each member of SEES. Once they see them all, the group will later confirm what all those memories had in common with each other. For each member of the group, these moments reveal the reasons why they woke up their personas. However, from all those moments, there was one that did not apply to this logic, which was Aegis' memory. Aegis did not have to awake to her persona power since she already had it from the start. However, there was something that she did awake around this time, and that was the power of handling multiple personas, which after watching her piece of memory, the group will finally understand why. So once you unlock all the mysterious doors, the dark silhouette you've been chasing finally shows up, revealing to be a dark version of yourself, or to be more precise, a version of yourself as a shadow, which the group have no choice but to fight. After finally beating that shadow, it became very clear to Metis what was going on. As I explained in the story of the Kirijo group's investigation, shadows have the power to alter space and time, which is why Kotetsu Kirijo wanted to harness that power to build his own time manipulation device. So the reason why the crew ended up getting trapped inside the Abyss of Time was because they were somehow clinging to the past, due to them first of all not wanting to accept the fact that all the people that were precious to them are gone, and second and most importantly, it was due to their desire of seeing you, their fallen comrade, again. Both things held them back from moving forward with their lives, which is why the shadow they just beat a moment ago had your appearance and your powers. You see, if you haven't noticed by now, the reason why persona users are the only ones capable of fighting shadows is because personas and shadows are basically the same thing. Shadows are the humans' suppressive negative thoughts and desires that take physical form as a result of people not being able to face their darker selves. A monster created from her anxiety, our jealousy, pessimism, depression, and nihilistic thoughts. However, when they become aware of such negative thoughts and they're able to control them and the power that comes with it, they become shadow tamers. They become persona users. So what happens when a powerful persona user sleeping in the same dorm share those exact same thoughts of not wanting to move on from their past? They get trapped in a place where time does not move forward. Now that they finally beat the shadow that trapped them there, each member receives a key. Those keys combined will allow them to open the main door of the dorm, sending them back to the present and destroying the Abyss of Time. However, Metis informs them about another door they can open with those keys. Another door that's been locked since they got trapped in the abyss of time. That door is the door to your room. According to Metis, unlike the main door, this one will send them to a certain moment in the past, like the ones they've been opening so far. Only that with this one, once they enter it, the abyss of time will disappear, so there's no turning back. So now, they have two choices: to leave the past in the past and come back to the present, or to revisit it. After coming back to a cracked dorm due to the abyss of time becoming unstable, the crew discussed their thoughts about the situation and the decision they must make. Akihiko, Ken, and Junpei agreed to leave the past behind and move forward. However, Yukari is determined to go back to the past to prevent you from dying, even if that means having to fight Nyx again, and Mitsuru decides to stand with Yukari. After not being able to reach an agreement, Yukari decides that the only way to settle this is the same way they've settled all their problems with their shadows. With violence. Something that somehow Metis was prepared for, so she guided them into a battlefield suitable for the occasion. How fucking convenient, huh? Whoever gains possession of the 8 keys will be able to combine them into one main key, which will have access to both doors. Since this story is told from Aigis' perspective, Aigis is the one that gains possession of the key of time after defeating all her friends, the last ones being Mitsuru and Yukari. However, Yukari's intense desire to go to the past and see you again makes her do one last futile intent: to take the key from Aigis' cold hands. And the reason I say futile is not because Aigis is physically stronger than Yukari, but it's because Metis informs us that whoever gains possession of the key of time will be the only one that will be able to use its power. And once Yukari hears this, all her boiled frustration causes her to finally break down in tears. After seeing Yukari's resolve, Aigis decides she wants to use the key to find out the cause of your death. So in the process, she remembered the door that leads to Polonia Mall, which they've been using to prepare for all the battles they've been encountering thus far. So, considering the abyss of time is linked to their feelings and desires, if they wish strong enough to see the truth, they can make it happen. Now, considering all the doors in the abyss of time disappear once they meet their purpose, the fact that the door that allows them to prepare for battle, that one being the door that leads into Polonia Mall, did not disappear at that moment, meant that the battle is not over yet. There is still one less enemy to defeat. After successfully summoning that door and preparing themselves for battle, the time to see the truth about your death and the miracle you pulled off to save the world from the fall is finally revealed. And it hit me in a way that will change my perspective of life forever. You see, like I said in the story of the journey, you used all your power to seal Nyx away from the world to avoid the fall. However, even though the arrival of Nyx means the end of everything, Nyx has never been a malevolent being that wishes for the world to end. So sealing her away is normally something completely unnecessary, unless something tries to reach her. And that's when it appears.
A shadow. So many. All those peoples.
As I thought, the seal's real purpose. It wasn't to hold back Nyx. It was a seal so that it couldn't be touched.
What do you mean? That monster isn't a shadow. It's the accumulated malice that came from the hearts of countless living people. All of them, deep down, are calling Nyx.
That can't be.
a gigantic and horrendous monster that was revealed to be the accumulated malice of so many people's desire to seek death, was trying so desperately to scratch and claw its way to the great seal built from your life's essence to reach out for Nyx. That means that the seal wasn't made to prevent Nyx from arriving to our world. It was made to prevent people from calling her. And that's when it hit me. Going back to when I finished the journey, I asked myself, who is the true villain of this story? And after going this far, it became clear to me. It's not the Dark Hour or the Shadows, it's not Strega, it's not Yuji Ikutsuki or Kotetsu Kirijo from the Kirijo group. It's not Nyx. God, it's not even the monster that's trying to reach Nyx. The true villain of this story is all of us. Those who have been affected by the loss of a friend or a family member, those who have or had an unhealthy relationship with their parents and or siblings, those who aspire to find ambition and true meaning in their lives without any success, those who don't have the confidence to step out of their comfort zone, those who have everything they needed to live a long and dignified life but would rather throw it all away, those who had every desire to enjoy their lives to the fullest but were destined to live a short life. No matter the reason, there's always a point in our lives where we just want everything to disappear. We want all our troubles to go away and just be in peace. But life just isn't that simple. And we only have the choice to either do something about it, endure it, or simply die in the process. And when so many people aren't strong enough to deal with the first two options, more than one door opens for so many tragedies to happen. As Yukari said once she knew what that monster was, when your life loses its meaning, the fact that can be kind of comforting. That lurking malice we're unaware of is strong enough that can give birth to such a huge monster. And maybe that's just how it is these days. After finally beating the gigantic monster, they come back to the dorm to finally use the key to go back to the present. When they enter the main dorm, the whole group appears in the Velvet Room, where they meet Igor, Elizabeth, and Metis, who finally recovers her memories. After sharing some words with Metis, Aigis finally discovers who she really is. You see, when Aigis got deeply depressed, she wished to go back to being a mere machine with no feelings, which is why when she got her wish, she did not require any sleep. So the reason why Metis described herself as Aigis' sister is because in actuality, Metis is the physical form of the feelings Aigis wished away. And now that Aigis welcomed her back, that human side that we all know and love from her finally came back. Now, when everybody woke up from the Velvet Room and back to their dorm, they noticed Aigis was the only one that hasn't woke up yet. And when they realized this, they remembered that on the Velvet Room, Aigis asked Igor if the result of finding the answer to life, just like in the case with you, would be your death. So they started to get extremely worried. But then they realized the reason why Aigis did not wake up is because she lost so many nights of sleep. So she was just extremely tired. Finally, after time began to move again, the crew is ready to say goodbye to the dorm and start their new lives. At first, Aigis wanted to return to the lab since she had no reason to live anymore, but now that all that's changed, she requested Mitsuru to put her back in Gekkoukan High so she can be with her friends. And the game ends with Yukari asking Aigis to be her roommate in the new dorm, offering herself to be by Aigis' side the same way Aigis devoted herself to be by your side. I mean, it makes sense. You're friends after all, aren't you?
途切れた約束だけ
To say that this game did something in me is a massive understatement. The profound message of the story, its cast of main characters and how they were able to grow, the importance of the side characters' actions, the antagonists like Strega and the Courageous Group and their origins and motivations, the very dark and sinister atmosphere surrounding this story. All these components made for a change in my perspective in life that could never be ignored even if I wanted to. However, it wasn't just the quality of the game that made such a drastic change in my philosophy. It was also the circumstances around the time I played it. Throughout my entire life, I've had the fortune of spending most of that time without losing a friend or a family member. And because of that, as I saw so many people not having this luck, I started to have this naive thinking that this will never happen to us, or at least it won't until we were old enough to see it coming. Unfortunately, that will all change during the last 3 years of my life, because during that time, I would lose 3 family members to the same fatal disease. My grandpa, my uncle, and the worst of them all, my dad. What was so crushing about this loss was the fact that we were informed about this way in advance. My dad was diagnosed with colon cancer 3 years before it happened, but the worst part of it was the fact that a year after the diagnosis, we were informed by the doctor he was not going to be able to make it. The same way Ryuji informed you all about the fall, with the only difference that they were told they only had until before spring. While in my case, I didn't know when it was going to happen. So I spent the next 2 years in sadness, anxious, and living with the constant fear that at any moment my dad will leave this world forever. At times when I saw how well he was rehabbing and how dedicated he was to his diet, I had some sparks of hope thinking that he will somehow make it through this, but after multiple surgeries to a deteriorated digestive system, the damage was irreparable. 24 hours after his last surgery, he was gone. And when it finally happened, I just couldn't keep it together. After crying his passing for the next 3 days, I had to now deal with the harsh reality of living the rest of my life without him. You see, my dad wasn't just another member of my family. He was the core of my family. Funny, charismatic, and childish enough to be the soul of the party, empathic enough to understand our troubles and support most of our decisions, and direct and strict enough to put us in our place when necessary. Even though I was 29 when it happened, I still felt like I could learn so much from him. There were a lot of things I wanted to accomplish in my life, and I wanted him to be present for them. He was my hero and also the man of the house, and after he passed, I felt like I had to assume that role, and I didn't think I was ready for it. The worst part of it all was that I was probably the one that was less affected by this loss. My mom lived most of her life with him, so she fell into a deep depression. Compared to me and Big Sis, Little Sis was the one that was most attached to him, so her sadness could not be ignored. And Big Sis had to prepare the whole funeral right after it happened. And most of my dad's friends and siblings didn't know anything about it until it happened. I went through so many emotions, all of them pretty negative. I didn't know what I should do next. I was scared to think about how my future was going to look like without him. Holidays, Christmas, New Year's Eve, family dinners, vacation trips. It was hard for me to even be enthusiastic about any of those things anymore. It made me empathize a lot with my cousin when he lost his father, and with my aunties and even my dad when first they lost their mother and then their father. It's one of the hardest pills to swallow. A kind of pain you don't overcome, you just learn how to deal with it. And while all this was happening, I was in the middle of playing The Answer, and when I finished it, it became crystal clear to me. Ever since we're kids, one of the first things society teaches us is that death is the worst outcome possible. You will leave this world forever, you won't be able to do the things you love anymore, and your friends and family won't be able to see you again, which will make them very sad. So they tell you to live your life safely so you can avoid that outcome as much as possible. However, most of the time it's not until you're mature enough when you realize that no matter what you do with your life, it will come to an end someday. And sometimes it ends up being sooner than you hope. And sometimes it's not even your fault. Persona 3 does an excellent job sharing this message through its story. Everyone in this game has somehow been affected by the tragedy of death and the hardships of life. The pain of loss and having to start a new future dealing with that loss, finding a purpose in life, trying to focus on your future without being able to enjoy the present, dealing with the things that are out of your control. Whatever it is, society gives you at least one reason to consider the path of death as a form of salvation, and that's why you can identify with every single character in this game, which is why, even though you're playing the role of Makoto Yuki, the game makes sure that you are the protagonist of the story. The story of The Answer is all about Aigis finding the answer to life after dealing with the pain of losing the most important person in her life. And since I can somehow identify with her situation, I ask myself that same question. What is my answer to life? Well, after finishing the game and taking time to deal with my loss, it became more than clear to me. I want to play more video games. I want to watch more anime. I want to watch even more wrestling, if that's even possible. I want to keep drawing all the shit that comes to my mind. I want to do some voice acting. I want to do animations again. I want to buy an apartment so I can live on my own without paying rent. I want to eat a lot. I want to sleep a lot. I want to hang out with my close circle of friends. I want to make my own video essays on YouTube. Check. I don't want to work in an office that's 5 kilometers from home when I can work remotely. I don't want to buy a car because I live in the Dominican Republic and we have the most chaotic traffic in the fucking world, so driving stresses the shit out of me. I don't want to get a girlfriend, get married, and start a family because I am a diabolically introverted dude with a limited amount of time to do all the things I love to do in life. So I don't want to share with anybody other than my friends and family. I want to live the life I always wanted, following the morals and values my dad raised me with, without harming anybody in the process. So when my time comes, I will leave this world with a smile on my face and without any regrets. If you're dealing with similar things in life, this is my advice to you. Instead of trying so hard not to die, focus all that energy on enjoying your life. Start that project, study that career, meet new people, don't meet new people, go to that party, stay home and watch that movie, go to the gym, eat that ice cream, play that song you loved so much on repeat, get that driver's license, don't get that driver's license, get laid, play with yourself, apply for that job, start your own business, rent that house, buy that house, start a family, stay alone. If you're obeying the law, you're not harming anybody. And hell, sometimes the people that represent the law are too greedy and stupid to obey their own law, so what's the fucking difference? If you're afraid that people will criticize you and your way of living, keep in mind that society will even criticize you for doing absolutely nothing. Hell, I encourage you to do that exercise yourself. Go to social media, post a picture of yourself doing absolutely nothing, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 pictures of yourself with different clothes doing absolutely nothing. And if you have enough followers to get at least, I don't know, 5 or 6 comments, I can assure you they will all be related to them criticizing your way of living. I can assure you that. So just focus on what makes you happy above anything else. Now that we live in the world of social media, it's easy to compare your lifestyle with the most successful people out there and feel disappointed. So to that I say, stop. Just stop doing that. Because just like every single character in this game, their journey is not the same as yours. And because of that, their answer to life is not the same as yours. I have been Tafka Romney. Thank you so much for listening, and until we meet again. Thank you for watching this. I appreciate the views. Please leave a like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this, it takes a lot to make this stuff. But if you show me your support, you get more stuff like this. You have a blast, I promise you.